Hey gang, I'm Ruth Ann.
I'm Chris.
And we are Geek Chic Promotions. Today we actually pre-recorded the weekend before because both of us are at conventions.
That's right.
Yes, Chris is going to be at
Comic-Con
Revolution in Ontario, California, and then I'm going to be at the Diamond Retailer Summit for, I know it doesn't say it on the front, Aftershock Comics. I swear, it's an Aftershock Comics shirt. So we thought it'd be fun today to talk about, because obviously we have talked on this show previously about what brought us into the nerd world and comic books and all that sort of stuff, but we haven't talked about what kept us in it, because I feel like that's one thing, as supportive as my family is, they just don't understand what we do and
Most
like why we love it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, because I feel like in this generation, what's great about this generation coming up is they don't have the same adversity that we had, you know, coming into nerdery and all that kind of stuff. So they don't quite understand, like, why was it such a big deal?
Right, and I also think that there's like this disconnect between like things being for kids, but also like who makes the stuff that the kids read?
Yeah.
Adults.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and that's kind of lost in the middle there, and it's kind of funny because it's like, oh, like, so what are you, just like in Arrested Development? Are you like just mentally a child still?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, but like this stuff gets made somehow, and it's not made by children, and you kind of have to have a love of it to do it because damn, it sure doesn't pay much.
Yeah, it does not, especially the comic book world.
Exactly.
And I mean, like, comic books are still, for me, so important because there are companies like Aftershock that it's definitely not for children,
Not for
or
children,
even like
exactly.
young adults. It's there's some dark stuff, and there's also stuff where there's heroes that are our age, you know?
Yes.
And that's the thing that I always think about, and that's, you know, a lot of people always question my love of anime specifically, and to me there's a representation of that there's no such thing as growing up, that everything, your villains or your challenges just keep getting harder and stronger and more difficult, and you just have to keep rising to that occasion.
Right.
And I feel like that's also represented in comic books as well as anime and obviously other superhero type stuff.
And it's also just like plain escapism. It's like sometimes like guys, like life is rough. Life is rough. Like sometimes you need to like decompress and just watch something that makes you feel good, where the good guy wins.
Yep.
It's like, my gosh, don't we have enough of that not happening in real
Yeah.
life? So
And on the juxtaposition, there's a lot of amazing comic books that really are artistic, and like it's not just pretty pictures and words. It's like stuff gets really like in depth and psychological and really makes you question things, and it's a whole new art form that I feel like people just put into the category of like it's for kids, and it's like, no, it doesn't always have to be.
like this artwork though is so fantastic, and like sometimes it's incredible to think that comic books can get done in a month.
Yeah.
Because the level of detail that some of these books have, and like the colors, and you know, just it kind of just blows my mind on a regular basis. And even the simpler stuff, it takes a lot of training to be able to do this. People do this, like they work towards this for the majority of their lives. Like, you know, I mean, yeah, there's like some people out there with like raw talent, but you're not born drawing that well. Like it takes practice. And I think it's just really incredible. And as an adult, you appreciate that. It's not just like, you know, you're a child, like looking at
like,
the pretty pictures.
Give it to me as soon as possible.
Right.
Because there's such a huge team that goes into comic books as well, because there's obviously the writers, the artists, the editors, the pencilers, the inkers, the letterers. Like a lot of people don't.
The colorists. Yeah. There's just, it's such a huge, it's like you could have a team of 8 people on one book working pretty much full time to put it out every single month within 3 weeks. Essentially, it's what you have to wrap up. You know, a regular 28-page comic or 22-page or 32, whatever, you know, oversized, whatever it is they choose to do. But like, I don't think like people realize how much work it takes and why there's a love there. It's like, because it's passion. You work so hard on something to bring it to life, and you don't understand, like these pencilers, these artists, they're creating people
that don't exist. And also, like, here's the thing, and I know this sounds like such a novice thing to find so amazing, but the fact that they can keep a character looking the same.
Yes.
Like, I mean, that goes for cartoonists, and obviously, but like that's drawing that person in so many different positions over and over and over and over again. Yeah,
everything. Like, if you guys could see what they go through during character designs, like they draw the face in all different facial expressions and positions and angles
Before they even
get started,
Yeah.
so that they know like what this person looks like and who they are. And you're talking like, yeah, you can use references, you know, from photos and stuff like that, and you can take them from other people that you know. But one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of these characters tend to resemble the artists themselves because they're looking in mirrors to try and draw the different
100%.
facial expressions. So
Especially
you'll find like
the beginners,
noses or like the lips or
You're
know,
like,
the eyes.
wait a
You're like,
second.
hey, yeah, which you know I don't think a lot of people realize when they're reading these comics.
Yeah.
You know, which I think is pretty great. But I do think that you know comics are not just a form of entertainment for children anymore. Adults enjoy them as well. I do appreciate all ages books that you can read.
Oh yeah.
No matter what age you are, and it's funny no matter what. I think Disney does like a really good job of that. And I Marvel and DC being the big two, obviously they're the ones who can do it the best because they are subsidized by huge companies and they can afford to pay people.
Yeah.
And they can do things way ahead of time and pay in advance and all this other stuff. But also, I still think that there's like a disparity of like, they're trying to now put out stuff for kids that's not selling and all the adults are buying it.
Yeah.
And like there's like this big boom of comics that are coming out of like I don't know if it like has to do with the Marvel movies or like what happened, but like actually the comic industry is growing stronger and stronger more than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And it used to be on a decline.
But ironically, DC and Marvel are actually having the worst sales ever in comics right now. And I think it's because they're so focused on the movies. And also, I mean, this is one problem I had with X-Men, which were my babies, and that was my thing. But by the late 90s, reading them, it was just getting so, like, they kept just reinventing the same characters over and over again. Or like, now they're dead. No, really, but they're alive. Oh no, she was in a cocoon, and now this is a copy of her. Like, what? Like, can't we just have some new characters thrown in?
Which, by the way, like applause to the writers who keep coming up with brand new stuff. But oh my god,
it's like the most epic soap operas ever. Like the evil twins, and like somebody comes back to life, and they weren't expecting to, and there's some time travel thing that brought the original team back with a new team. It's like,
which is funny. Okay, so here's like a really funny thing that like I thought was really great of like when Thanos snaps, okay, and everybody's gone. Okay, so
spoilers. I'm just kidding.
Like, that's like Infinity War.
I know, yeah,
okay,
I know,
that's
I'm
so
just
long
kidding.
ago, guys. If you haven't seen it by now, why are you watching us?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, but like a lot of people were like, well, they're gonna come back. Like they're gonna do it because that's comics, guys. Like, and even though it was like a great story to watch, it was heartbreaking. Like they all come back. But on this latest one, which I will not say like who died or whatever, but
not everybody comes.
I don't think they're coming back.
Yeah, they ain't coming back.
Like, so it's not just always a guarantee that these characters are going to spring back to life.
And it's also the, like you were saying, the imagination and the talent of these writers to find a way to still have it be heartbreaking, you know, but somehow they kind of come back, but just not the same version, or like, you know, all that kind of like there's always a cost, and I think that's what's really amazing. And like I think it was Stan Lee who said, because people kept asking him the age-old question of like, you know, this character versus this character, who would win? And he's like, who's writing it? Because that's it's whoever the writer wants to win. Like, sorry.
Which is accurate. And it's funny because when you read comics as a kid and you go all the way up to when you're our age, these characters become a part of your life.
Oh yeah.
Like they're your friends, like after a while, and like why do you want to let a friend go? Like just because like what, people think you're too old to like read it?
Yeah.
It's like these are adult storylines, you know, they kind of age with you and they're fun. And it's like, why not revisit that and go back to your childhood, which was like hopefully a time in your life where like you were carefree and like, you know, things weren't weighing on you as heavily, you know, and go back into that. It makes you feel good, you know, and it's just like a really nice thing. Or discover new worlds, you know, where I fell out of comics
your
for
imagination,
a bit.
like.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like I got really busy with life and I fell out of comics, and which is weird because when you work in the comic industry, like how can you fall out of comics?
It happens though.
I'm too busy. Like literally I'm just working 24/7 and I don't have time. Like at night I just fall asleep. I don't have time to read, you know, but the thing is that I pick them back up every now and then, like when you gave me some to read, and I was like, oh man, like,
right? Especially because you
this.
forget that there's so much, especially with independent comic creators and publishers, like there's this stuff you would never think of because you are so used to the ones you grew up with, like X-Men, Marvel, DC, like all that kind of stuff. Like you still have those storylines so ingrained in you, and to have these new comics with totally new stories and arcs and characters is just amazing. And for me, because like a lot of people have also the discussion of digital comic versus real comics, and I know I'm super hippy dippy and I want to save all the trees, but also there's something, it's like to own, to hold the read, the smell, the turning of the page, like there's something to it. And another Stan Lee quote is actually, it's a slightly dirtier one, but it's hilarious, that he said, you know, looking at boobs is great, but actually holding them is better. Okay, I'm messing up the full quote, but that was basically what he was saying. I'm just like, yeah, it's great to look at them, but like there's something that's better to hold them. And I feel like that's one thing that's kind of shifting, and what's really good about Free Comic Book Day is it is to bring in new readers, specifically kids, but I'm seeing it being kind of 50-50 of bringing in new, you know, adult readers as well as kid readers, because it's not just for kids anymore.
Yeah, and to me that's great. It's like, hey, yeah, introduce some kids to comics, but also introduce a friend. Like,
Yeah.
they don't have to be a kid. Like, just, gosh, I mean, you know, I've met a lot of people in life who are just like, oh, you know, I'm not really a big reader. I'm not a fan of reading. And it's like, well,
there's not,
you know what? There's pictures.
It looks real pretty. Yeah, and there's just so much artistic license that can be taken. I mean, like, one of the things that I was drawn to with Frank Miller's work is just the color palettes and like how
raw.
Yeah, how raw it was, and it was telling a story, but in a very different, not like picture, but like just these very raw artistic like things of just like like just like things very just, I don't know how to describe his work.
Yeah, it tells a story without using words, and it's usually introspective.
Or even like full pictures.
Yes,
Like it's
like
just like
very,
edges
you
of
feel
things.
the emotion of it, and it's a raw emotion, and it's like gritty, and it's usually like our darkest, deepest selves of like how we feel, and we just relate to it really hard, even though we're not those people.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like a master storyteller, and I could go on about Frank Miller, but you know, it's just, I feel like the reason why we stick around in this business, and the reason why, you know, we love it so much,
we're still fans,
is, you know, it's because every day you get to immerse yourself in something that is, I don't want to say like imaginary, but it's just, and it's not like a fantasy, it's just you get to live
these different worlds
like for real, kind of, because you're in it and you're working it and you're getting paid for it, and it's like awesome, like,
and now I get them before anybody else. Like just like hyperventilating reading these things as soon as possible. And like in the same way that I feel that physical comic books are still very important, is I feel conventions are still very important. And here in Southern California, we do feel a little bit overwhelmed with how many conventions there are.
There are a lot.
Because there's a lot. But like I'll never forget my first con and that experience. And I feel that every single time that I go to a convention where I'm with my people and they know what I'm talking about, and I'm super excited to like interact, because that's the thing, is that you can join Facebook groups and you can be a part of like Twitter threads talking about this kind of stuff, but there's nothing like being in that moment with the people, like other fans, as well as like the actual creators, and either going to their booth and talking to them, or seeing them discuss on a panel like all this amazing stuff and putting together like all these amazing creatives and like discussing, you know, what's important with these works. And it's, you can't get that same experience digitally.
I agree. And also, like, I feel like conventions are where you can see things for real, like the artwork is like right there in front of your face. It's not, you're not looking at it on a screen. You're watching them actually do it in front of you.
Yeah, commission pieces.
Yeah,
like that's
their
huge
artwork
deal.
that's displayed is like the real deal. Like when I first went to a convention back in Chicago, I just remember looking at I can't remember which one it was, I'll be honest, but it was Gen Con, okay, which used to be in Milwaukee. So drove up there, and it was fantasy. It was fantasy and sci-fi at the time, and so I was super into fantasy books. And the artists who did the covers of my favorite novels were there with their paintings displayed. That was the covers of the book, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, I could own the cover of my favorite book and put it on my wall.
Yeah.
The actual original art. If I have a couple $1,000.
Yeah, a couple $1,000.
Which I did not.
But like,
it's
also
like,
you can get
it's
these
just,
people to
like,
sign things
mind-blown.
personally.
Yeah,
Like,
and I did. I got my novel signed, and it was like, literally, I was like beside myself.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God.
still
Yeah.
one of my favorite memories was us doing Nerd Rage at Ontario. Gosh, was it just last year where we had Paul Jenkins on
yeah. Mm-hmm.
to rage about Wolverine Origins, the comic book, versus the garbage pile that was the movie. And having Paul there, because like now I've gotten to know Paul like as a friend, and it's this crazy thing of like I was such an aggressive fan of his, and then like because I kind of separated the two like once I met him and started talking to him, and you kind of always assume when you're our age and like people are in this industry, you assume they're going to be a little bit bitter, and he wasn't.
He's not bitter.
He's not at all. He was so like he was so heartfelt about like the storyline of it to this day, and I still had the full volume of it that I had first bought when it first came out, you know, way before I met Paul, and like he signed it and he wrote this very sweet thing to me about like Nerd Girl whatever, and it was just like you know, and I have that forever now.
After knowing people in the industry who have written like some of your favorite stuff, like I have artwork from like books I read before I even met that were just given to me because I became friends with these people. And they're like, "Oh, we didn't know you were a fan. Here, have a Spawn page. Here, have," and you're just like,
Okay,
"What?" Like, and it,
thank you.
yeah, and it's like just crazy. Like, it's like basically living a dream every day.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and you go to these conventions, you get to see friends that you don't normally get to see because they're from all over the states or all over the world.
Or even you live in the same like town
Yes.
like we do, and we don't get to see anybody except for at conventions because we're all so busy working in this industry.
It's true. So anyway, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, there's just I'm a firm believer that nobody's actually a grown-up. You just are always growing. Like there's such a false like misnomer about like at a certain age you're an adult. I'm like, no, not really.
I think you are an adult, but like
Yeah,
like
you are
you
an
do.
adult, but you're not.
Like, you pay your bills,
but
you-
you're not
you-
like
you do your
done.
thing,
Like
but-
you're not like you are a grown up. This is your complete. Like let
Yeah.
go of all that childhood
Exactly.
stuff. It's
There's
like,
no reason you have to let it go. That I guess that's what we're saying. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, you pay your rent, you do your bills, you know, crap
Yeah.
happens to you, but that doesn't mean you have to let go of childish things.
If anything, I think it's more important to hold on to those because it's what makes us who we are. And as we were saying before, a lot of these storylines of these comics and the stuff that we read and we watch is not for kids. It's for us. It's for adults that are facing new challenges and new difficulties, and we get to still deal with it on a very simple good versus evil basis in these comic books, which is a lot easier to face than what we're probably facing in our own lives.
I think it's funny, like a lot of writers do that where they take a lot of things that they're dealing with in real life and they put it into their comics and they have it wind up the way that they want it to wind up instead of how it really
work out
is
some
going.
shit.
And it's like, yeah, exactly.
You work some shit out.
Yes.
And it is hard because there are some comics that don't end happy, but it still gives you what you need to say like it's okay, like just it's okay. Either way, it's okay.
Yep. Agreed.
And that's a hard lesson learned, and that's not something you're gonna get in a kid's book.
And I just keep going back to, it's like, yeah, you know, nobody has this kind of weird thing. Like, okay, if you're an adult and you're reading like kids' picture books, okay, that's a different story.
Yeah, like
that's a different story. But also, if you are an artist or a writer and you're writing those things, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's getting lost here, is like the difference between like being a child and enjoying it, or being the adult that creates those things for children and then just kind of swerving a little off path and making it for adults too, because why not?
That's the thing that I find the most talented writers that write these things that are for kids, but there's some like deep level stuff, and like sorry to keep going back to anime, but like okay, technically not an anime, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender. When you first start to watch this, you're like, oh, kids show, am I right? But then it gets into very deep socio-political stuff, as well as like basically this kid is the newborn Dalai Lama, and like it's trying, and like all the different nations fighting, and they deal with like death and like all this very like deep stuff, but it still comes off as a kid show. Like it's just very well written that like All
Who
ages.
made that up?
Yeah.
An adult.
Adult did.
Bravo.
Yeah, good job, person.
I don't know.
I don't know who did it. I know it was Nickelodeon, so that's all I know. But at the end of the day, like, we're probably going to keep doing this for the rest of our lives. Like,
In some way or another.
Yeah.
Whether it's conventions, whether it's in the publishing side, whether it's just reading.
yeah,
You
because
know?
it's important. Art is so important for society,
Yes.
and especially like an art form like comics, because there's so many different versions of comics. Like, there's comic strips in your newspaper. There's memes are basically mini comics. Like, if you think about it, you get a whole like little story, and usually it's just a punchline, but it's all right there.
Oh, that's something to think about.
You're like, But it's there to make you laugh. It's there to make you think. It's there to make you feel better. Like, there's so much that you can get from an art form that combines artwork and like actual words. Because they always say, you know, picture is worth 1,000 words. Just 1,020 now.
Good point.
Yeah. So we are really excited to be at our 2 conventions. Please say hello to Chris if you see
If
her
you're going to be
at
there out on Ontario,
California.
not Canada.
Not Canada, not yet.
Nope.
It's one of my favorite shows. I am sad that I'm not going to be able to be there. This is actually going to be my first convention. I mean, it's technically a retailer summit, so it's really just with the retailers, but I'm still super excited. It's going to be my first one.
She's giving a presentation.
I'm giving a presentation, guys. I'm excited.
She's working on it.
I'm working on it as we speak.
And I'll be there doing the programming in Ontario, so I'll be walking back and forth
Yeah.
between panel rooms. You can always catch me, see me, let me know.
I feel like maybe some point we should talk about what goes into making the panels and programming for a convention, because a lot of people don't know, and I feel like a lot of people just think that conventions are buying stuff and cosplay. Like, I feel like that's like the 2 things, and like a lot of people have never been to a panel, and I remember like I was starting to get frustrated doing panels with you because we come up with these amazing panels and then we couldn't sit and watch them.
Yeah, and that's actually a problem that I'm going to run into this time, because I kind of went above and beyond on the panel programming for Ontario. So there's like 4 different tracks that I created. One was a creator summit, so it's basically an educational track of programming for creators only on how to improve their craft,
Or if you want to
and
get into
learn
it.
about the
Yeah.
industry and everything else. And so there's a whole 2 days of that. And then there's also 2 days worth of kids programming where you can do Pictionary, you can learn how to draw a comic, learn how to create a superhero. Like, there's so many different ones, and it's all family friendly. And then there is the huge panels that are like Star Wars and a Stanley tribute panel, and you know, we have the writer from the Big Bang Theory with Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor, because apparently they were involved in the show.
And if you
Like,
don't know who those people are, Google that right now and your mind will
Right.
be blown.
Exactly. So there's like so much awesome stuff that I'm very, very excited about. And yeah, I can't go to every single one. And you know, and guy over here, Marcus Perry, he's moderating
I was wondering if you could bring that up.
Peter Cullen panel, you know, like Optimus Prime himself, and we also have a Transformers 35th anniversary panel, and so exciting. We have video game voiceover artists from all the big video games, and so guys, it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
I'm pretty super excited about it.
So if you aren't already there today when this airs,
Come on, guys.
go on Sunday.
Right.
There's still amazing panels, still amazing guests, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
And then tomorrow we have the last episode of
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, we're going to figure out how we're going to be able to do our Game of Theories. If you guys aren't watching it already, it'll be our last episode, obviously.
Yes. And normally we release it at 9 a.m. on Monday so that, like, you know, it doesn't spoil anything. But, like, Ruthann doesn't get in from Vegas until, like, noon on Monday.
Yeah.
I'm legit, like, running to the airport and picking her ass up, and we're going to do it right after. I'm like, she's not even going to have a chance to put down her bag.
Like,
so I'm
no,
like,
just like,
let's
I'm
do
going to be,
it.
like, sweaty and, like just... So Game of Thrones, am I right?
So don't miss that.
Don't miss that. It's going to be great. All right. We love you guys. We will see you for Game of Theories, and then again for next week's Nerd Rage.
Yes, that's
Yes.
right. We'll see you then.
See you then.